My granddaughter, my only granddaughter. The cry tore from Anya's throat, 89 years old, older than Yakutia's icy peaks, as the biting wind whipped her wrinkled face, already etched by 1,000 winters. 60 bears, colossal beasts with fangs sharp as obsidian knives and claws that tore through the permafrost, roamed the frozen forest where her little Aika had vanished. Every step was agony, every breath an icy blade in her lungs. But the huntress did not falter. She felt the earth tremble, the guttural growl echoing among the trees, petrified by the brutal 71-degree cold, but her determination was unshakable. When she finally spotted the clearing, a different kind of chill ran down her spine, and what she saw froze her heart in her chest. Her granddaughter, amidst a circle of 10 grey wolves, and the scene was not one of terror, but of an inexplicable peace. And what she discovered forever changed her understanding of the wild. Anya, the 89-year-old huntress, felt the frigid air tear at her lungs as her eyes fixed on the scene. Aika, her granddaughter, sat on the snow-covered ground, a small reindeer fur coat wrapped around her tiny body. She wasn't crying, wasn't trembling with fear. On the contrary, a soft smile played on her lips while one of the grey creatures, a wolf with thick fur and amber eyes, nuzzled its snout against her tiny hand. The other 9 wolves formed a protective circle around her, some lying, others sitting, all with a stillness that belied their wild nature. There was no threat, only a silent, almost reverent guard. Anya's heart, which had beaten wildly with terror and exhaustion for days, now pulsed with an overwhelming mix of relief and perplexity. 60 giant bears had been the terror of her journey, but here, before 10 wolves, feared and cunning predators, fear dissolved into a haze of wonder. How was it possible? Her entire life had been dedicated to understanding the secrets of the tundra, to reading nature's signs. But that image defied all her ancestral wisdom. Her wrinkled fingers clutched the handle of her staff, not in preparation for a fight, but as support for her mind, trying to process the impossible. Aika looked up, and her gaze met Anya's. A gleam of pure joy lit up the girl's face, and she gave a small nod, a silent invitation. No sound was uttered, but the message was clear. The wolves, sensing the elder's arrival, raised their heads, but showed no aggression. Their gazes were curious, perhaps even recognizing. Anya took a hesitant step, the ice crunching under her heavy boots. Every fiber of her being, every hunter's instinct, screamed at her to be cautious, to protect herself. But her love for Aika was a force more powerful than any survival instinct. She moved slowly, her eyes fixed on her granddaughter, but also observing every movement of the wolves. The purity of that moment, Aika's innocence amidst wild beasts, was a mirror of Yakutia's own untamed nature, revealing a truth Anya had never imagined. The connection between the child and the animals was palpable, an invisible web of trust and mutual respect. Aika saw no danger. She saw companions, protectors, and the wolves, in turn, seemed to recognize in the girl an essence that calmed them. Anya finally reached the edge of the circle. The wolf that had previously nuzzled Aika now watched her with serene intensity. The elder knelt with difficulty, the pain in her joints ignored by the magnitude of what she was witnessing. She slowly extended her hand, not to the wolves, but to Aika, who launched herself into her arms, a tight embrace that dispelled the last shadow of doubt. The scent of smoke and snow, emanating from Anya, mingled with the wild, clean smell of the wolves, creating an olfactory symphony that spoke of survival and a new kind of home. Aika was safe, and the way she had been protected was a miracle, a gift from the tundra itself. The elder felt a warm tear trace down her frozen cheek, not of sadness, but of deep gratitude and a renewed understanding of life and its mysteries. The 70 separate cold seemed less biting in the warmth of that reunion. Aka nestled in Anya's arms, her small body exhaling the sweet scent of childhood, mixed with the wild, earthy aroma of the forest. The elder held her granddaughter close, feeling the girl's accelerated heartbeat, a sound of life that echoed in her own chest, pushing away the icy echo of loneliness and despair. Her wrinkled fingers caressed Ika's tangled hair, while her eyes, blurred by emotion and exhaustion, scanned the circle of wolves. They remained motionless, like grey statues carved in ice, but their amber eyes followed every movement, every breath. There was no hostility, only an attentive, almost protective vigilance. "My little Ika," Anya whispered, her voice hoarse from the cold and disuse. How are you here with them?" Ika raised her head, her large, bright eyes fixed on Anya's. She didn't answer with words, but with a soft smile, and then pointed to the darkest furred wolf closest to them. The animal, as if understanding the girl's silent communication, stepped forward, lowered its head, and nuzzled its snout against Ika's hand, which she stroked with a naturalness that broke all barriers of Anya's reason. It was as if the girl and the wolves spoke an ancient language, forgotten by humans, a melody of trust and mutual respect. Anya watched the scene, her mind struggling to reconcile what she saw with everything she knew. Her entire life had been shaped by the harsh reality of Yakutia, where nature was an unforgiving force and wolves, cunning predators, were part of that challenge. But Ika, her pure-hearted granddaughter, seemed to have found a sanctuary among them. The elder felt an unexpected warmth spread in her chest, not just from the reunion, but from the revelation of a deeper truth about the connection between life and the wild. Her shoulders, stooped by almost 9 decades of labor and cold, relaxed slightly, releasing a tension she hadn't even known she carried. Ika, sensing her grandmother's stillness, pulled her hand and placed it on the wolf's back. The thick, warm fur under her fingers was surprisingly soft. Anya hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding. The huntress's instinct, forged in years of survival, warned her of danger, but her love for Ika and the girl's unwavering trust propelled her. She stroked the wolf, feeling the contained strength beneath its fur, the animal's eyes fixed on hers, and Anya felt an ancestral intelligence, a silent wisdom that transcended words. It was as if the wolf was saying, "She is safe with us." The sun began to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in pale shades of orange and purple, a cruel reminder that the icy night was approaching. The 70 cold was unforgiving, and the threat of the 60 giant bears, though absent at that moment, hung like a shadow over the journey back. Anya knew they couldn't stay there. The clearing, however magical, was not a permanent shelter. She needed to take Ika home, to the village, to safety. But how? How to convince Ika to leave her protectors, and how to ensure the way back was safe, especially with the bears still lurking on the frozen trails? The elder squeezed Ika's hand, a new challenge forming in her tired gaze, but now infused with renewed hope and a strength that only a grandmother's love could provide. Anya squeezed Ika's hand, a new challenge forming in her tired gaze, but now infused with renewed hope and a strength that only a grandmother's love could provide. The dilemma was clear: how to move Ika and those who protected her back to the village across miles of frozen tundra where 60 giant bears lurked. Ika, sensing her grandmother's tension, looked up. Her lips formed a small pout, and she squeezed the back of the nearest wolf as if to show that this was her place, her refuge. "We need to go, my flower," Anya whispered, her voice laden with a sweetness she rarely used in the harshness of life. She pointed to the rapidly darkening sky, to the promise of an even colder night. "The village awaits us. Your mother, your father, they are worried." Ika shook her head slightly without taking her eyes off the wolf. It was a silent but firm refusal that broke Anya's heart. The girl had found such a deep connection with those creatures that the idea of leaving them seemed unthinkable to her. The wolves, in turn, seemed to sense the girl's hesitation and the elder's anguish. Their amber eyes moved between Aika and Anya, as if trying to decipher the complex web of human emotions. The wolf Aika was stroking let out a low growl, almost a lament, and nuzzled its snout against the girl's cheek, a gesture of affection Anya would never have imagined seeing from a predator. The elder felt a lump in her throat. How could she separate Aika from her guardians? And, more importantly, how could she ensure her granddaughter's safety without the unexpected protection of these animals? Anya's ancestral wisdom, built on the premise that nature was beautiful but unforgiving, was being rewritten by that scene. Sheka's connection with the wolves was not just an anomaly, it was a lesson, a bridge between worlds Anya thought were irreconcilable. She closed her eyes for an instant, the cold biting her eyelids, searching deep in her soul for an answer. A strategy that would honor both Aika's safety and the truth she had just discovered. Upon reopening them, Anya saw the determination in Aika's eyes. The girl was not afraid, but held an unwavering loyalty to her protectors. The elder realized that forcing a separation would be to break something precious in Aika's soul, something the tundra had taught her. What if they came with us? The idea arose, audacious and almost insane. 60 giant bears were a real threat, but 10 wolves, acting as guardians, could be an unprecedented defense. It was an immense risk, a gamble on the untamed nature she had just learned to see in a new light. Anya leaned towards Aika, her eyes fixed on her granddaughters. "Aika, my brave one, we need to go home. Do you think your friends could help us?" She gestured to the wolves, a faint hope flickering in her gaze. Aika looked at the wolves, then at her grandmother, and a wide smile lit up her face. She turned to the nearest wolf, whispering something in its ear, a soft melody inaudible to Anya. The wolf raised its head, howling softly, a sound that echoed in the clearing, and the other 9 wolves responded with similar howls, a wild and harmonious chorus that seemed to seal a pact. Anya felt a shiver run down her spine, not of fear, but of profound reverence. It was a moment of surrender, of trust in something beyond her comprehension. She stood up, the pain in her joints a mere whisper before the magnitude of the decision. The journey back would be even more dangerous, but now they would not be alone. The elder took a deep breath, the icy air filling her lungs with new strength. With Aika by the hand and the wolves as her unexpected guardians, Anya was ready to face the 60 bears and Yakutia's harshest winter, driven by the promise of a miracle and the unshakable connection between a grandmother's love and the wild wisdom of the tundra. Anya felt the weight of responsibility and the lightness of newfound hope as the wolves' howls dissipated into the frigid air, a sound that in other circumstances would have chilled her soul, but now seemed like an oath, a wild promise. Aika, still nestled in her arms, raised her head and pointed to the dark-furred wolf, which positioned itself ahead, looking towards the village. The other 9 wolves spread out, forming a protective semicircle around them, their movements fluid and silent as shadows on the snow. "Let's go, my brave one," Anya said, her voice firmer. With effort, she stood, the pain in her knees and hips a reminder of her age, but adrenaline and her love for Aika propelled her. Aika held her hand tightly, her warm fingers in her grandmother's wrinkled palm. Together, they took the first step out of the clearing, into the vast, unforgiving white of the tundra. The biting wind whipped their faces, raising fine snow. The 70-degree cold bit exposed skin, penetrating their fur clothes. Anya pulled Ika's hood further down, shielding the girl's face. The wolves, ahead and on the flanks, moved with grace and efficiency, their robust bodies cutting through the deep snow. Their amber eyes, once serene, now gleamed with sharp vigilance, scanning the horizon, sniffing the air for threats. Anya watched them, a mix of admiration and caution. She, a huntress, understood brutal nature. She knew the line between protector and predator was thin, for hunger could transform any creature. But Ika's presence, her granddaughter's unwavering faith, was a shield against her skepticism. Ika, oblivious to her grandmother's fears, hummed a soft melody, her eyes fixed on the wolves, as if on a parade of loyal friends. The journey was arduous. Each of Anya's steps sank into the snow, requiring Herculean effort. Her muscles burned, her lungs ached. She felt the weight of age, the exhaustion of days of searching. But the thought of Ika, safe by her side, and the sight of the wolves, silent guardians, infused her with a strength she didn't know she possessed. Human connection, unconditional love, proved to be the most potent weapon against despair. Suddenly the lead wolf stopped, its ears twitched, and it let out a low, almost inaudible growl. The other wolves immediately halted, their bodies tense, eyes fixed in a distant direction. Anya felt a chill, a premonition. She knew it was the presence of the bears. The threat of the 60 hungry giants had not disappeared, it merely awaited. Ika, sensing the change in mood, squeezed Anya's hand and looked at the wolves, her eyes curious but fearless. The elder took a deep breath, the vapor freezing on her lips. The test of their alliance was about to begin. The way back to the village would be a battle against the cold, exhaustion, and the beasts of the tundra. Anya squeezed Ika's hand, feeling the small pulse of life beneath her fingers. She looked at the wolves, who now grouped closer, forming a living barrier. The promise of protection had been made, and Anya felt they would honor it. The elder's heart beat strongly, with defiance and hope, as night fell and danger deepened over the vast frozen plains. The air, already biting, seemed to freeze even more with the low growl of the lead wolf. Anya felt an icy shiver run down her spine, mingling with the extreme cold. Her eyes, accustomed to the tundra's gloom, scanned the growing darkness, trying to discern any movement in the distant shadows. Ika, sensing the tension, nestled closer to her grandmother, but her curious eyes remained fixed on the wolves. Without a hint of fear, the dark-furred wolf, leading the pack, advanced a few steps, its posture low and alert, sniffing the wind. The other 9 wolves spread out, forming an even denser protective semicircle around Anya and Ika, their muscular bodies and thick fur offering a living barrier against the invisible. Anya squeezed Ika's hand, a gesture of security for both her granddaughter and herself. Her experienced hunter's mind worked frantically. 60 giant bears. The mere mention was enough to paralyze a strong man. But there she was, an 89-year-old elder, with a child and 10 wild wolves, facing the impossible. The irony was not lost on her. Her entire life had been a struggle against nature, but now, nature, in the form of those wolves, seemed to be her only ally. Anya's heart beat a rapid rhythm, not just from fear, but from a strange mix of hope and reverence. The lead wolf let out a new, deeper growl, and the other wolves responded with muffled howls, a guttural chorus that seemed to warn the bears of their presence and their determination to protect the girl. Ika, in a spontaneous movement, let go of Anya's hand and extended hers to the nearest wolf, a gesture of trust that made the elder's heart clench. The wolf, instead of retreating, nuzzled its snout against Ika's tiny hand, a soft touch that disarmed any lingering doubt in Anya about the purity of that connection. It was as if Ika was a beacon of peace amidst the ferocity of the tundra. The journey resumed, but now with a palpable tension in the air. The wolves maintained their formation, moving with impressive synchronicity. The lead wolf, with its dark fur, opened the way, its eyes fixed on the horizon. Anya and Aika followed closely behind, the elder with every fiber of her being attentive to the signs, sounds, and smells. The cold was a constant presence, an invisible enemy trying to steal their warmth, energy, and hope. With each step, the snow crunched under their boots, a sound amplified by the oppressive silence of the falling night. Exhaustion began to weigh on Anya's shoulders. Her legs, already aching, threatened to give way. She felt the weakness, age taking its toll. But then, Aika looked at her, her eyes shining in the gloom, and the girl smiled, a pure smile full of confidence. In that instant, Anya felt a wave of renewed strength. It was not the strength of her muscles, but the strength of her spirit, driven by unconditional love for her granddaughter. She could not fail. Not after all she had faced, not after witnessing that miracle of connection. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the silence, a dry crack, like thick branches breaking under immense weight. It was unmistakable. Bears. The wolves stiffened, their growls more audible now, a clear warning. The lead wolf looked back at Anya, and then at Aika, as if assessing the situation. Time was running out. Night brought not only the most intense cold, but also the darkness that favored predators. Anya knew the journey would be long, and the danger imminent. She squeezed Aika's hand, her heart beating a drum of defiance, ready to face whatever came, with her wild guardians by her side. The sound of cracking grew, no longer distant, but close, vibrating in the frigid air. From the darkness of the pine forest, which rose like a black wall against the pale sky, the first shadows emerged. Enormous, dark, moving with a ponderous slowness that, in itself, was terrifying. Anya felt her heart leap into her throat. 60 giant bears. They were not just figures of legends, but a monstrous reality materializing before her eyes. Her wrinkled eyes widened, trying to absorb the scale of the threat. They were larger than any bear she had ever seen, their massive shoulders rising above the young trees, their enormous heads swaying from side to side, sniffing. The wolves, previously vigilant, now transformed into a wall of muscle and fur. Their growls intensified, a deep, menacing chorus that echoed in the clearing. The lead wolf, with its dark fur, crouched even lower, teeth bared in a silent warning. The other 9 wolves positioned themselves in a perfect defensive formation, their amber eyes fixed on the approaching giants. Aika, however, showed no fear. Her large, curious eyes followed the bear's movement, and a small smile played on her lips. She let go of Anya's hand and took a step forward, a gesture of pure innocence that made Anya's blood run cold. "Aika, no!" Anya whispered, her voice choked, reaching out to pull her granddaughter back. But Aika was already a step beyond. She raised her hand, not in defiance, but in a gesture that seemed like a greeting. And then, to Anya's astonishment, the girl began to hum. It was a soft melody, almost inaudible in the wind, but full of a sweetness that seemed to defy the ferocity of the tundra. The bears, who had previously advanced with hungry determination, stopped. Their massive movements ceased, and their heads tilted slightly as if listening. Anya watched, paralyzed. Her hunter's mind screamed danger, but her eyes witnessed something that defied her experience. The bears did not seem aggressive. There was a strange hesitation in their eyes, an almost childlike curiosity. The lead wolf, which had been ready to attack, also stopped, its growls diminishing to a murmur. It looked at Aika, then at the bears, and Anya noticed confusion in its wild gaze. Aika's melody continued, a wordless lullaby that seemed to weave an invisible web of calm in the icy air. One of the bears, the largest of all, with a deep scar on its snout, took a hesitant step. It was not a step of attack, but of cautious approach. It lowered its head, and Anya swore she saw an expression of perplexity in its dark eyes. Aika, fearless, continued to hum, her eyes fixed on the giant. She extended her hand again, a silent invitation. The bear stopped a few meters away, its heavy breath forming clouds of vapor in the air. The other bears remained motionless, observing the scene with unusual stillness. Anya felt a warm tear trace down her frozen cheek. It was the turning point, the unexpected truth that YAKUT had reserved for her. Aika was not just connected to the wolves. Her purity seemed to calm even the wildest of beasts. The bear's hunger, the aggression Anya so feared, seemed to dissipate before the girl's innocence. The lead wolf, now more relaxed, let out a sigh, and the other wolves also lowered their guard, though maintaining vigilance. Aika was a beacon, a melody that silenced nature's fury. Anya knew she needed to act, but not with violence. She needed to honor Aika's connection, guide her home, and perhaps, just perhaps, nature itself would show them the way. The 71°C cold was still relentless, but the warmth of that miracle warmed the elder's soul, giving her a new perspective on the strength of love and innocence. The largest bear, with the deep scar on its snout, lowered its head even further, a gesture Anya interpreted not as submission, but as a silent reverence for Aika's purity. The girl, with her tiny voice, continued the melody, and the giant let out a low sound, a deep murmur that resonated in Anya's chest, but which, strangely, contained no threat. It was almost a purr, a sound of contentment that the elder would never associate with such an imposing beast. The other bears, spread in a semicircle, observed the scene with unusual stillness, their postures relaxed, the aggression from before replaced by an almost gentle curiosity in their dark eyes. The wolves, in turn, remained vigilant, but their growls ceased completely. The leader, with its dark fur, looked at Anya, and the elder felt that he too was perplexed, witnessing something that defied the natural order that both huntress and predator knew and respected. Anya's ancestral wisdom, forged in years of living with the brutality of the tundra, was being rewritten with each passing moment. Anya, her heart still racing with surprise and emotion, took a step forward, gently pulling Aika back, a protective instinct that age had not diminished, but without interrupting her granddaughter's song. "Aika, my little one," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion and wonder, "we need to continue our journey home." The girl nodded, a glimmer of understanding in her eyes, but her small fingers still pointed to the bears, as if to ensure they understood. She extended her hand to the lead wolf, who approached and nuzzled its snout against her fingers, a silent bond of understanding and loyalty strengthening. The elder knew she couldn't simply turn her back on the 60 giant bears. There were too many of them, and even if they were calm now, the tundra was a place of sudden changes, where hunger could resurface at any moment. She needed a safe passage, an assurance that the journey would not again become a nightmare. With a deep sigh, Anya raised her hand, not in defiance, but in a gesture of respect and caution to the giants. "We thank your presence and your kindness," she murmured, her words carried by the biting wind, but laden with a clear and sincere intention. The scarred bear blinked slowly, and Anya felt a strange communication, an understanding beyond words, a soul-to-soul connection. Slowly, with Aika still humming her soft melody, Anya began to move. The wolves, now more relaxed in their vigilance, formed a kind of escort, moving with silent grace. The bears, instead of blocking the way, opened a passage, their massive bodies moving to the sides with ponderous slowness, as if yielding to an ancient and sacred rite. It was a corridor of giants, a path that Aika's innocence had unveiled, paved by the purity of her heart. Anya watched the bear's dark eyes as they passed, and in them she saw not hunger, but a kind of respect, an acceptance of that small creature who brought peace to the heart of the tundra. The journey back to the village, which had previously seemed an impossible battle against unforgiving nature, now transformed into a silent and reverent procession. The 70s Falushadagazi cold continued to bite exposed skin, but Anya's spirit was warmed by a new understanding. Aika, in her purity, had revealed a face of nature that Anya, with all her wisdom as a huntress and elder, would never have imagined possible. Human connection, the innate goodness of a child, proved to be a force capable of transcending the wildest barriers, calming the untamed. With each step, Anya felt exhaustion intensify, but the sight of the wolves ahead and the bears, who now kept a respectful distance, infused her with renewed energy, a strength that came from the soul. It was a living testament that, even in Yakutia's most brutal conditions, life found extraordinary ways to manifest and protect itself. The village was still a long distance away, but Anya no longer felt despair. She felt the promise of a new dawn, a hope that Aika, with her melody and pure heart, had ignited in the midst of the harshest winter. The elder knew that this story would be told for generations, a reminder that love and innocence could move mountains of ice and calm wild beasts. She squeezed Aika's hand, feeling the small pulse of life beneath her fingers, and looked up at the starry sky, a silent prayer of gratitude. Yakutia, with its secrets and unforgiving beauty, had presented her with the greatest miracle of all, a life lesson that transcended time. Yakutia, with its secrets and unforgiving beauty, had presented her with the greatest miracle of all, a life lesson that transcended time. Now, each step in the deep snow was a testament to that lesson. The elder felt the weight of age on her shoulders, the exhaustion of days of searching, and the constant battle against the cold that froze to the very marrow of her bones. The icy air cut exposed skin, and the vapor of her breath solidified instantly, forming tiny clouds that dissipated in the wind. Aika, nestled close to Anya, continued to hum her soft melody, a sound that seemed to warm the surrounding environment despite the 71°C. Her curious eyes watched the wolves that surrounded them, and at times she extended her tiny hand to touch the thick fur of one of them, receiving in return a gentle nuzzle of its snout. The 10 grey wolves, once feared predators, were now loyal guardians, moving with impressive synchronicity, their muscular bodies forming a living barrier against the invisible. The lead wolf, with its dark fur, remained ahead, its amber eyes scanning the darkness, always alert, but with a calm that Anya had never seen in a wild animal. Behind them, at a distance that seemed measured by an ancestral respect, the 60 giant bears followed. Their massive silhouettes were almost imperceptible in the gloom of the polar night, but Anya felt their presence, a silent and imposing force. It was an improbable escort, an alliance forged by Aika's purity, which defied all the laws of the tundra that the elder knew. Her experienced hunter's mind, accustomed to the brutal logic of survival, struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what she was witnessing. Anya's exhaustion was a heavy burden. Her legs, already aching, threatened to give way with each sink into the snow. She felt the weakness, age taking its relentless toll, but then Aika would look at her, her eyes shining in the gloom, and the girl would smile, a pure smile, full of confidence. In that instant, Anya felt a wave of renewed strength, not muscular, but spiritual. It was the unconditional love for her granddaughter, the silent promise to bring her back home, that propelled her. She could not fail, not after having seen the beauty of that connection, the unexpected truth about nature's untamed wisdom. The lead wolf stopped again, turning its head to Anya. This time its growl was more of a whisper, and it pointed its snout towards a cluster of rocks and twisted pines in the distance. It was a place Anya recognized, a small rock formation that offered a minimum of shelter from the wind. The wolf's ancestral wisdom, combined with her own, indicated that it was the best place to spend the rest of the night. They needed to rest, to regain strength before dawn brought the promise of more miles of snow and ice. Anya nodded her head, a gesture of gratitude to the wolf. She squeezed Ika's hand, who had already noticed the change in direction, and looked at the shelter with curiosity. The elder knew that the danger had not completely disappeared. The tundra was treacherous, and the bear's hunger, though calmed, could resurface. But with the wolves as her guardians and Ika's innocence as her shield, Anya felt a hope she had not experienced in a long time. Overcoming was not just a physical battle, but a journey of the soul, where human connection and altruism found their place even in the coldest heart of the world. With each step towards the shelter, Anya felt that she was not just saving Ika, but rediscovering herself, the strength of her spirit, and the untamed beauty of life in Yakutia. The promise of a new dawn, with Ika safe by her side, was her compass. The promise of a new dawn, with Ika safe by her side, was her compass, guiding her through the deepest darkness of that Yakutian night. The path to the cluster of rocks and twisted pines seemed an eternity, each of Anya's steps sinking into the deep snow, a Herculean effort for her 89 years. The 71st degree seen the cold bit every inch of exposed skin, turning the air into ice crystals with each breath. Ika, with her soft melody, seemed oblivious to the brutality of the environment, her large, curious eyes fixed on the wolves that guided them. She occasionally let out a little giggle, a pure sound that was lost in the biting wind, but which warmed the elder's heart, renewing her determination. The 10 grey wolves moved with a silent elegance, their slender, strong bodies cutting through the snow as if they were part of it. The lead wolf, with its dark fur, turned its head from time to time, its amber eyes meeting Anya's, a wordless communication that the elder understood as both a warning and a guarantee of protection. Behind them, the 60 massive silhouettes of the giant bears followed, an imposing presence that somehow had transformed from a threat into a silent honor guard. Anya felt the ground tremble slightly with each heavy step of the giants, a vibration that would once cause panic, but now brought a strange sense of security and reverence. As they reached the rocky shelter, the wind howled less fiercely, offering a welcome small respite. The wolves immediately began to circle the area, sniffing the air attentively, their protective instincts in full swing. The leader indicated with its snout a small crevice in the rock, a tight space, but one that would offer some extra protection against the harshest elements. Anya, with a sigh of relief and exhaustion, helped Ika nestle there, covering her with the heavy reindeer fur she carried. Ika, already sleepy, rested her head on her grandmother's shoulder, the melody ceasing, replaced by a murmur of contentment and trust. Anya watched the bears settle into a wider semicircle, their gigantic forms creating a natural barrier against the wind and snow. They did not seem hungry, nor aggressive. They were just there, their dark eyes reflecting the pale moonlight, a silent and mysterious vigil. The elder felt a wave of gratitude and profound perplexity. Her entire life had been dedicated to understanding and surviving Yakutia, but Ika, in her innocence, had unveiled a secret she would never have imagined possible. Nature was not just unforgiving and brutal, it could also be compassionate, protective, if approached with a pure and true heart. Anya's physical exhaustion was overwhelming. Every muscle ached, every bone protested. She felt the weight of her 89 years, the relentless journey taking its toll, but feeling the warmth of Ika's body beside her, seeing the calm in the wolves' eyes and the stillness of the bears, an inner strength ignited in her chest. It was not the brute force of an experienced hunter, but the resilience of a spirit that refused to yield to adversity. It was the unconditional love of a grandmother, the altruism that propelled her to continue, to overcome every obstacle, however insurmountable it seemed. Night advanced, and the tundra's silence was punctuated only by the distant howl of the wind and the heavy breathing of the bears, who seemed to breathe in unison with the earth itself. Anya closed her eyes, but sleep did not come easily. Her mind replayed the events, the wonder of Ika's connection with those wild beasts, the improbability of their situation. She knew the path to the village would still be long and dangerous, but hopelessness had been replaced by a renewed and unwavering faith. Ika was living proof that life, even in the heart of the harshest winter, found extraordinary forms of protection and redemption. That rocky shelter, surrounded by wolves and bears, was not a place of danger but a sanctuary, a testament to the miracle that love could work. The promise of a new dawn, with Ika safe by her side, was her compass, guiding her through the deepest darkness towards hope. The promise of a new dawn, with Ika safe by her side, was her compass, guiding her through the deepest darkness towards hope. The night was long and unforgiving, even within the precarious shelter of the rocky cluster. Anya, nestled close to Ika, felt the bitter cold infiltrate her bones, a constant and painful presence. Despite the exhaustion, sleep offered little relief. Her mind, sharpened by almost 9 decades of experience in the tundra, worked tirelessly. She watched Ika, who slept deeply, her face serene and rosy, oblivious to the strange honor guard that surrounded them. The elder caressed her granddaughter's fine hair, feeling the faint warmth of the small body, and a wave of tenderness washed over her. The wolves, with their unwavering vigilance, took turns on sentry duty, their amber eyes glowing in the darkness. The leader, with its dark fur, lay closest to the rocky crevice, a silent and imposing guardian. Anya felt the heavy breathing of the giant bears, who settled in a more distant semicircle, their massive silhouettes forming an organic wall against the biting wind. It was a scene that defied all her understanding of nature. As a huntress, she had learned that the tundra was a place of predators and prey, of an incessant struggle for survival. But Ika, with her purity, had rewritten those rules, weaving an invisible thread of connection that united beasts and humans. Anya thought of her village, of the worried faces waiting for them. The distance seemed insurmountable, the cold, an invincible enemy. But Ika's smile, the melody that had calmed the bears, the loyal gaze of the wolves, all of it was a balm for her tired soul. Overcoming was not just about physical strength or ancestral wisdom, but about the ability to open one's heart to the unexpected, to the beauty that could flourish even in the most hostile environment. With the first pale lights of dawn beginning to tint the horizon a bluish-gray, Anya knew it was time to leave. The cold of dawn was the most intense, a cruel test for any living creature. She felt the stiffness in her knees and shoulders, her body protesting against movement, but the image of Ika, who now awoke with a soft yawn, propelled her. "My little one," Anya whispered, helping her granddaughter to stand. "The journey continues?" Ika extended her hand to the lead wolf, who approached and nuzzled its snout against her fingers, a silent farewell and a promise of protection. The other wolves stood up, shaking the snow from their coats, ready for the march. The giant bears, as if they had received an invisible signal, also began to move, their massive forms creating a natural corridor for Anya and Ika to pass. The elder felt a lump in her throat. It was an act of trust that required immense faith, a surrender to a truth she was still learning to accept. Each step in the deep snow was a challenge. The icy wind whipped their faces, and visibility was limited by the frozen mist that hung in the air. Anya squeezed Ika's hand, feeling the small, warm palm against hers. She looked at the wolves ahead, her silent guides, and at the bears behind, her improbable guardians. The village was still far away, but the hopelessness from before had been replaced by an unwavering determination. Ika had shown her that human connection, pure love, could transcend the barriers of the wildest nature. It was a lesson she would carry with her forever, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the magic that could be found even in the frozen heart of Yakutia. The journey back was now a procession of hope, a miracle in motion across the white vastness. The journey back was now a procession of hope, a miracle in motion across the white vastness. The pale light of dawn offered little warmth, and the wind, though constant, seemed to gather strength with each passing hour, whipping fine snow like needles against Anya's aged face. Her legs ached with a deep, persistent throb, each step a conscious act of will against the overwhelming fatigue that threatened to drag her into the infinite white. Aika, nestled in the crook of her arm, had fallen silent, her small body heavy with sleep, a testament to the exhausting trek. Anya held her tighter, her granddaughter's warmth a fragile anchor in the icy expanse. The 10 grey wolves continued their silent lead, their dark coats almost blending with the shifting shadows of the snowdrifts. Their movements were fluid, their senses sharp, guiding Anya through terrain that to her tired eyes became increasingly indistinguishable. Behind them, the 60 giant bears maintained their respectful distance, their massive forms a moving wall against the biting wind, their deep, rumbling breaths a low, constant counterpoint to the wind's howl. Anya glanced back, catching the glint of the scarred bear's eyes, a silent assurance that they were still there, still guarding. Suddenly the sky, which had been a uniform grey, darkened menacingly. A fierce gust of wind, unlike any other they had encountered, tore across the landscape, bringing with it a blinding swirl of snow. In an instant, the world dissolved into a white tempest. The temperature seemed to drop even further, and the air grew thick with ice particles, making it almost impossible to breathe. Anya gasped, pulling Aika closer, shielding her face with her parka. Her vision blurred, not just from the snow, but from pure exhaustion and the sudden terror that gripped her heart. This was the tundra's brutal final test. She stumbled, her legs finally giving way, and fell to her knees in the deep snow. Aika still clutched tightly to her chest. Despair, a cold, insidious tendril began to creep into her soul. She was so tired, so utterly spent. How could she go on through this? But then she felt a soft, insistent nudge against her flank. It was the lead wolf, its amber eyes, though squinted against the storm, filled with urgent, unwavering resolve. It nudged her again, then gently tugged at the hem of her coat, urging her forward. The other wolves, instead of scattering, formed a tight circle around Anya and Aika, their bodies a living shield against the onslaught. And then the bears. Their immense forms moved with surprising agility, closing ranks behind the wolves, creating a formidable barrier against the blizzard's fury. Anya felt the ground vibrate as they moved, their collective warmth, however slight, a comfort in the overwhelming cold. She rose, propelled by a surge of adrenaline and the silent, powerful encouragement of her improbable protectors, with the wolves forging a path, their keen noses finding a trail through the white blindness, and the bears gently pushing from behind, creating a pocket of relative calm. Anya found a strength she didn't know she possessed. Each step was agony, but she focused on the rhythmic sway of the lead wolf's tail, a beacon in the storm. She felt Aika stir, murmuring softly, and Anya knew she could not give up. This was it, the ultimate test of their bond, of her resilience. Then, as suddenly as it began, the worst of the blizzard seemed to abate. The turbulent snow thinned, and through a momentary clearing, Anya saw it. Faint, flickering lights in the distance, small points of warmth against the vast dark canvas of the Yakutian night. The village. A sob escaped her lips, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and profound gratitude. They had made it. The climax was here, not in a battle, but in the triumph of connection over nature's most merciless forces. The wolves let out low, triumphant howls, and the bears, though silent, seemed to radiate a sense of quiet victory. The journey was almost at an end. The village lights, once distant and trembling points, now shone with an almost unreal promise of warmth and safety. Anya felt a shiver run through her body, not from cold, but from overwhelming emotion. Her steps, once heavy, found new lightness. Aika, sensing the change, lifted her head from her grandmother's shoulder, her curious eyes fixed on the lights. A small smile formed on her lips, and she pointed with her finger, a murmur of joy escaping. The wolves, tireless guides and protectors, slowed their pace. The lead wolf turned its head to Anya, its amber eyes expressing ancestral wisdom, a silent understanding that its role was fulfilled. One by one, the 10 wolves moved away from the trail, their slender silhouettes disappearing into the tundra's darkness. Aika's connection would remain, an invisible link between the wild and the human. Behind them, the 60 giant bears also began to disperse. Their massive forms moved with solemn dignity, retreating into the depths of the pine forest. The scarred bear, the last to leave, paused, turning its enormous head to Anya. Its dark eyes, once menacing, now conveyed reverence and respect. It then turned and vanished into the night, leaving a sense of peace and wonder. Anya was alone with Aika, just a few meters from the village. The smell of burning wood smoke and the distant bark of a dog brought her back to reality. She squeezed Aika's hand, feeling the small, warm palm. A sob of relief escaped her lips, warm tears streaming down her wrinkled face. They were tears of gratitude, of triumph, of a love that had defied death itself. The first figures emerged from the cabins. Alarmed voices turned into shouts of astonishment, and then exclamations of joy and disbelief. "Anya! Aika!" Her neighbor, Lena's voice echoed. The entire village seemed to awaken, and in moments a crowd of worried faces, now lit by hope, ran towards them. Anya felt the strong arms of her son Boris wrapping her in a tight embrace of relief. Aika was immediately wrapped in blankets and taken into her mother's arms, who cried with joy, kissing every inch of her daughter's face. The warmth of the hugs, the sound of familiar voices, the relief that flooded the air. All was a balm for Anya's exhausted soul. She looked at the faces of the community, seeing in them not only relief, but a new understanding, a reverent astonishment. The story of their journey, of Aika's purity and the guard of wolves and bears, would be told for generations. The elder, at 89 years old, had not only rescued her granddaughter, but had brought to her village a profound lesson about human connection and the untamed wisdom of nature. The main conflict was resolved. Aika was safe, and Anya had returned with a new vision of the world, an unwavering faith in the power of love. The warmth of Anya's cabin was a welcome embrace, a blessing that penetrated her bones and chased away the persistent cold of the tundra. Aika, nestled in soft blankets near the crackling fire, was already sleeping deeply, exhausted but safe. Her mother, tears of relief still dampening her face, watched over her, stroking her hair. Anya, sitting on her reindeer fur bench, felt the weight of each of her 89 years, but it was a different kind of tiredness, one that brought with it a deep peace. The faces of the village, which had previously expressed panic and despair, now radiated admiration and a silent reverence. Boris, her son, knelt at her feet, holding her wrinkled hands, his eyes moist with gratitude. "Mother," he murmured, his voice choked, "you brought our Aika back. You brought a miracle." Anya merely nodded, a faint smile on her lips. She didn't need words to express what she felt. The journey had been more than a search. It had been a revelation. Aika's purity, her unwavering connection with wild nature, the improbable guard of wolves and bears, all of it had rewritten the laws of Yakutia in her heart. She had left as an elder huntress, driven by love, and returned as a guardian of a new truth. In the days that followed, the village transformed. The stories of Anya and Aika, told and retold by the flickering firelight, became living legends. Children listened with wide eyes about the grey wolves and the 60 giant bears that had protected little Aika. Hunters, once skeptical, now looked at the tundra with renewed respect, an understanding that nature held deeper secrets than they had ever imagined. Aika, recovered and full of energy, played with the other children, but there was a stillness in her eyes, a wisdom that did not belong to her age. She spoke of the wolves as friends, of the bears as silent guardians, and her innocence disarmed any doubt. Her presence was a constant reminder of the connection that could exist between human and wild, a bond forged in the heart of the harshest winter. Anya, in turn, became more than a respected elder. She was the personification of resilience, unwavering faith, and selfless love. Her hands, once firm with bow and arrow, now held Aika's with a tenderness that spoke of newfound wisdom. She spent hours telling stories to the young ones, not just about hunting and survival, but about the importance of listening to the wind's whisper, of respecting every creature, of finding beauty and protection even in the most inhospitable places. The village, once focused solely on the daily struggle for survival, began to see the world in a new way. Human connection, family ties, altruism, these values were reinforced, woven more tightly into the fabric of the community. They learned that true strength lay not just in the ability to dominate nature, but in the humility to connect with it, to understand its mysteries. Anya knew that Yakutia would continue to be an unforgiving place, that winter would still bring its brutal challenges. But now, there was a different hope. Aika was living proof that even in the depths of extreme cold, life found extraordinary forms of protection and redemption. A grandmother's love had defied death, and a child's purity had unveiled an ancestral secret. That winter, and in all the winters to come, the story of Anya and Aika would be told, not just as a legend of triumph, but as an inspiring testament to the indomitable strength of the human spirit and the magic that could be found in the frozen heart of the world, where love was the truest compass, guiding all through the deepest darkness towards eternal hope. The new dawn that followed that extraordinary winter brought with it more than the promise of longer days and a slight softening of the cold. It brought a silent yet profound transformation to the village. The story of Anya and Aika was not just a tale of bravery, it was a new gospel, whispered around the fires and etched into the hearts of all. Anya, though still feeling the weight of her 89 years, now carried an aura of reverence that transcended her age. Her eyes, once focused on hunting and survival, now shone with a wisdom that embraced the interconnectedness of all life. She became the guardian of stories, not just her own, but of ancient legends that spoke of respect for the tundra, of listening to the winds, and of understanding nature's silent signs. Aika, the little heroine, grew with an unusual grace and serenity for her age. She still played with the other children, but there was a stillness in her, an attentive listening that set her apart. Often she was seen sitting at the edge of the village, observing the white vastness, and the elders swore that the wolves and even the bears, in their distant migrations, seemed to acknowledge her presence with an almost imperceptible nod. Aika's connection to the wild was not a thing to be feared, but a bridge, a living reminder that nature, in its purest essence, was not only unforgiving, but also capable of deep protection and affection. The village, in turn, flourished in an unexpected way. Hunting continued to be essential, but the approach changed. There was a new reverence, a gratitude that permeated every expedition. Hunters spoke less of dominating the land and more of living in harmony with it. Children were taught not just to track animals, but to observe their patterns, to understand their habits, to recognize the beauty and complexity of each creature. Night fires were not just for warmth, but for sharing stories, for strengthening family and community bonds, for reaffirming the values of altruism and resilience that Anya had personified. Even in the harshest winters that followed, when the cold threatened to break spirits, the memory of Anya and Aika's journey served as a beacon. The village united with renewed resilience, remembering that, even in the depths of despair, hope could flourish. They learned that true strength lay not in fighting against nature, but in finding their place within it, in respecting its mysteries, and in opening their hearts to its lessons. Anya lived many more years, her hair white as snow, but her eyes always full of warmth and wisdom. She watched Ika grow, becoming a young woman who carried the essence of the tundra, a living bridge between two worlds, a silent guardian of the revealed truth. The elder knew that her journey had been a gift, not just for her granddaughter, but for all her people. She had proven that love, in its purest and most unconditional form, was the most powerful force in the universe, capable of melting the thickest ice and illuminating the deepest darkness, an eternal beacon in the Yakutian night. And so, the story of Anya and Ika became the soul of the village, a legacy of courage, compassion, and connection that would be passed down through countless generations. In every howl of the wind, in every footprint in the snow, in every gaze of a wild animal, they found an echo of that miraculous journey. Yakutia, with its austere beauty and relentless challenges, continued to be home, but now it was seen through the eyes of a new generation. A generation that understood that, even in the heart of the harshest winter, life finds extraordinary forms of protection and redemption, and that hope, like the spring sun, always returns, stronger and brighter than before. A grandmother's love had defied death, and a child's purity had unveiled an ancestral secret, ensuring that the light of human connection would shine eternally, warming souls in the frozen vastness, an immortal testament to the resilience of the spirit.